Well, I feel today like I'm preaching to the choir. Yeah. But anyhow, my topic is attention is energetic currency. So what are you buying? If you think about it, and a lot of this was inspired by Penny Pierce in her book, Leap of Perception. If you think about it, give me some expressions that would go with attention, like we pay attention, we get attention, we give attention, we demand attention,
We want attention.
we want attention, we invest our attention in things, we withhold our attention. Could I have your attention? Or in the military, attention, right? And when they say that, what do they mean? Give me your undivided attention. Question there is, all those words, all those verbs suggest that attention is spiritual currency, that it's spiritual money. And so when we pay attention to something, we are literally giving our essence to it, right? And if we're giving our essence to it, if we're giving our presence, our essence to that moment, we're creating more of it. Yes. Now, interestingly, William James is the father of psychology, American psychology, and he said, my experience is what I attend to. So everyone can have a different experience of exactly the same thing, depending on what they're putting their attention on when they're going through that event. And we say that all the time. In fact, the police depend on that. When they see several people looking at an accident, if everyone has identically the same description, they know there's something going on, because everybody sees it differently from a different standpoint. And everyone should have a different story as to what happened. Now, Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza is a brain surgeon, a brain specialist. He's a researcher. And the way he describes identically the same thing is that our thoughts are an electrical charge in the quantum field. And they go out from us into the field of all possibilities, the unified field that Deepak Chopra talks about too for the last 30 or 40 years. Our feelings are a magnetic charge in the quantum field, and so they draw things to us. So that's the scientific description of exactly what Science of Mind and Unity and all these others have been teaching for decades. Thoughts go out, and then our feelings bring it back. So then we have to say, okay, so what are we putting our attention on? And what feelings is that generating for us? And it can go positive or negative. You know, the old question, is your glass half full or half empty? I've always remembered that back, 40 years ago, probably, I was standing in my backyard in Champaign, Illinois, and the sunset was just one of those beautiful, colorful, radiant sunsets. And Dad was standing there, or he came out, and I said, "Isn't that gorgeous sunset?" And he said, "Well, it would be if it weren't for the telephone pole." Oh. Right? We had a great big telephone right pole at the edge of the yard, and of course my brothers, will often say, "Oh, this would be just perfect if only," and then they'd add some other piece that ought to go with the picnic, or ought to go with the party, or ought to go with the vacation, or And I'm always thinking, oh, bless what we have, the half a glass. Then it'll become a 2/3 of a glass, and keep blessing that, it'll become 3/4 of a glass, and pretty soon you'll have a full glass. But if you gripe and complain about the half that's not there, you get down to a third that's, and on and on and on. We grow whatever we're looking at. And if we're looking at the half empty, we get more of the same. Another example of this is missing the experience. I think it was, what was his name? I've had it on the tip of my tongue before, but he's a real famous positive thinking person. If I think of his name, I remember. Anyways, giving a talk, and he said he was in the Pacific Northwest, and he was coming down, he was just starting to come down a hill, and he saw this beautiful scene before him. And he went, oh, and he grabbed for his camera, and he's driving and grabbing for his camera, and he got down about near the end. He went, I just missed the scene looking for my camera. And it's not just people trying to capture something and taking a picture of it. It's people get so caught up in taking pictures, they miss the concert. There was a concert by someone, I didn't recognize the name when it was shared in class, but this person said, this woman was down front, she was taking pictures and she was taking pictures, and the artist, the singer, was up there singing. And finally he stopped between songs and he says, madam, why don't you just stop taking pictures and enjoy the concert? When we're that busy distracting ourselves, we're not really present to the present. And therefore, it's one thing to shoot the picture and then put it away, but it's another to just keep taking pictures or take your selfies. And your focus is not on the concert at all. When I went to the 50th reunion of Up With People, we had it down in Orlando, and they finished it off with this gigantic, and I do mean gigantic, fireworks display between the hotels, so that if anybody wasn't outside, they thought we were being bombed, and they were terrified, and they were, literally people were going, I didn't know what was going on. Anyway, I was outside, so I knew it was fireworks, and I grabbed my phone and I took a couple pictures, and then I said, no, stop right there. I will never capture what I'm seeing anyway. And I just let it in, right? The explosion after explosion, the colors, the immensity of it all. And no, I don't have any great pictures of it. The two I took weren't that wonderful. So it wasn't, losing out anything to be there 100%. So there's so many ways in which our attention that can get undivided or focused on something we don't want. Another area of this, another example of what I'm saying here, is if you manage to pay less than you would have thought you would have to, that is cause to rejoice. So bless the difference as unexpected income. Otherwise, you're getting it for less and you're complaining that, well, I still have to pay this. Well, yeah, but you just got, I go to Goodwill all the time and I look at what it would be costing me. And then I look at what I actually paid and I go, bless the difference, man. That's fabulous. That's fabulous. That's unexpected income. So we always want to focus on the half full part of our life. Catherine Patterson said, what I have come to believe is that joy is the twin sister of gratitude. I am most joyful when I am most grateful. The twin sister of gratitude. So being grateful for everything in our lives is a great way to put out feelings of gratitude, which then are matched by the quantum field, are matched by the universe, and come back to us in greater measure because it's matching that feeling of gratitude. Last week, Reverend Lind was talking about blessing everything and everyone in our lives. And I really, really like that, because blessing is the same as appreciation, an active appreciation. That energy is going out there positive, it's going out there grateful. So appreciation, when we appreciate anything, appreciate the beautiful flowers, or appreciate someone setting all this up for us every Saturday, or appreciating the roof over our heads in cold weather, you know, that's a gratitude plus a blessing. Because appreciation is an active positive force that's going out. I'm grateful for what I have received, but to appreciate is an energy going out that way. And remember, Daryl, my story about my friend Daryl, who's a musician, and how he used to rev up my students by saying, you'll always make the musicians do a better job if you show us that you're enjoying what we're doing. So let's rehearse your part. Remember that? And then he would have them whoop and holler, you know, he'd strike a chord and then whoop and holler, and then he'd do it some more and they'd whoop. He'd say, now come on, more than that, if you really want this to be a good concert. And pretty soon he had the energy up in the room, right? And then he would, they would play, and the people would give them a really good ovation, and they would get better and better as the night went on. It's no lie. So we are each other's audience. And if we do for everyone we meet what Daryl was asking his audience to do for the musicians, we can bless everybody we know. Bless them with what? We can raise each other's vibrations through our acknowledgement. I acknowledge who you are. I acknowledge your talent. I acknowledge your beautiful vibes. I acknowledge what you have done for us. You know, it's an acknowledgement. And people are so starved for that in our world today, especially out in the retail world, where everybody expects what they want right now or yesterday. And the poor frazzled person who's behind the counter is hearing all the complaints and being blamed if the store doesn't have anything or they ran out of something. To acknowledge is, it just changes the whole thing for them. So that's a gift we can give each other. Another one is praise. Boy, you really did a good job with this. Yesterday or whenever it was Thanksgiving, that was 2 days ago. We were kind of taking turns. Boy, these sweet potatoes are really delicious, because everybody brought something different. And then somebody else would say, yeah, but so is this. And we pretty soon we had mentioned everything on the menu. And I finally just said, well, let's just admit it, we're all good cooks. But it's nice to say, I really am liking the results of your efforts, to let people know, because it's easy to do among friends and or in our family, in our group. That's why I say I'm preaching to the choir. But to get it out to people who don't receive that kind of positive feedback is even more important. Another way we can do with our appreciation is our blessing. Blessing people, no matter what's going on, just unconditional positive regard. Blessing. A fourth way is our undivided attention. You know, there's so many times I'm sure you've been with people who you were trying to talk to them and their eyes were saying, yeah, yeah, and darting around the room and checking out what other conversations around, what else was going around them. Yeah. And you feel like, are you in there? Are you hearing anything I've said? Our undivided attention is saying you're worthy of my essence. Bringing my essence to the moment. You're worthy of that. I give you my undivided attention. Like Yeshe Dongden did when he was the monk from Tibet. He sat beside the patient and he just held her hand for 20 minutes, half an hour. He never said a word to her because he was taking her pulses and he didn't speak English, but that didn't matter. His essence was totally there with her. And when he left the room, she was saying, thank you, doctor. Thank you, doctor. So our presence, our joy, our happiness can uplift other people just by being in the room with them, by sitting next to them, or by giving them our undivided attention. It's a show of respect. And how many times have you been in a restaurant where you're talking to somebody and their cell phone rings? Oh, just a minute. And they're talking on their cell phone.
Yeah.
Now, in the old days, if somebody comes up to your table, everybody can hear what's being said, right? So you're in on the conversation, even if you don't know the person and they're not really talking to you, you can still hear what's being said. But on a cell phone, you're just sitting there. It would be a much greater show of respect to just put the cell phone away and turn it off till the meal's over and then see if you missed any calls. But we got a whole new world we're living in now. So to recap then, what we put our attention is on, we image, we're making an image of it. So image what you want with your undivided attention. If we want this church to grow, we can't go around saying we want it to grow. We have to see it grown, right? We have to see these tables filled. If we visualize the tables filled, and then we think about how we feel we would feel if this room was full of people coming to the church service on Saturday evenings. Look around you right now. Imagine the tables all filled and feel that sense of, oh, yes, right? In that moment, we're putting the thought into the quantum field and we're bringing it back to us with the emotion, with the feeling of completion, the feeling of, oh, yes, this room is crowded. We need to move back into the sanctuary. Right? So why don't we do it? Not just here, but I mean in everything in our lives. We know this is where the rubber meets the road. You can hear all this stuff week after week, read every book, go to workshops, but until we start literally saying, oops, I'm going down the half empty part of my life, go turn the wheel and go back to the half full. We're not practicing what we know. And don't you know, when I'm teaching something like this, the universe shows me everywhere I'm not doing it. And this week I've had to go, okay, let's go over and get this into a more positive road here. I don't want to go down the old rut. Be grateful then for the blessings that are already on their way. I love this. I found this shortly after my husband died 12 years ago, 11 years ago. It says, give thanks for unknown blessings already on their way. Isn't that lovely? And it's just a card. There's nothing inside. Give thanks for unknown blessings already on their way. So image what we want. Look for the feelings that would accompany that if it happened. Be grateful for the blessings that are already on their way. Doesn't this sound like a treatment? Doesn't sound like a treatment, doesn't it? And then bless everything and everyone in our lives with love and appreciation. And as Sue Ellen wrote in her thoughts this past week, and this was her thoughts now, She says, I love the idea of rehearsing being joyful. You know the old saying, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. We got good at walking by practicing. We got better at feeding ourselves by doing it. We got better at speaking by rehearsing our speeches. Why not rehearse being joyful? Indeed, why not? So, if attention is spiritual currency, what are we buying? Let's practice focusing our attention on things that will give us the biggest bang for our buck. Joy, gratitude, appreciation, connection, beauty, and all the infinite possibilities of this thing we call life. Have a good week.
Thank you.